Thank you so much for giving us a sense of where you're coming from
Yes.
in this important position that you
Sure.
have. And in the time remaining, let's just recall the issues that we talked about when I
Absolutely.
asked you what are the challenges facing teens
Yeah.
at Bethesda-Chevy Chase High School. There were 5, as I recall. The need for mentorship, that kids at this age need more interconnections with older mentors than they do even when they're younger. And we tend to see it the opposite way. They need more parental or adult involvement when they're young.
Absolutely.
Cybersecurity, the issues that kids are facing today, believing everything that's tweeted is correct, or posting videos that will last forever,
Yeah.
that can be harmful to them. The question of diversity at BCC and the fact that it is a very diverse place, but it's a bit siloed. How do you get people to interact across diversity groups? And the question of service and whether the kids are getting just hours or quality service and what St. John's might be able to do to help contribute. These were some of the issues you mentioned as challenges.
Yeah.
And of course, substance abuse,
Yeah.
alcohol and drug abuse, the need
Absolutely.
to offer service opportunities for kids that will give them a sense of what an impact that sort of
Yeah.
thing can have on their lives. So that's a lot in the time remaining, and we
Okay.
want to have questions.
Yes.
I'll let you pick the one you want to start with.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can start with the one you started with mentorship. I think that that's really important. That's an area that I'd like to see more of. You know, when kids are little, so I have a younger daughter. She's 9, about to turn 10 in a couple of months. And, you know, it's easy when they're all kind of, you know, cuddly, and they want they outwardly, they want their parents there, you know. She wants me there to work the Halloween party and wants me there to do all of these things. And we think, we have in our mind, oh, they're little, and we really, really need to be involved, and that's important. But I will tell you that I will argue that students actually need more adult involvement in their lives the older they get. Because the older they get, they're making the choices and decisions and have a level of independence that means that they've really got some things that they could get into. I mean, you know, when they're little, you know, they're not making some of those choices and decisions that are really, really as consequential. And so I really believe that there does need to be that adult involvement. And that means,
if I may interrupt,
Sure.
what could we do at this point to make that happen that isn't being done now?
right. Well, I really like, you know, an idea of any kind of partnerships where, because mentorships, I think, are really, really important because it gives the opportunity for multiple perspectives. And sometimes, I mean, just like I'm sure I did when I was, you know, 16, 17 years old, you think that there's no way that anyone who's older knows anything about the issues that you're facing, and you know, you can think that there's just a lot of difference. But just like, you know, excellent literature that's endured, many of the issues are the same issues that we face with peers and decision making and what will we do with our futures, and there's a lot I think that can be gained.
Yeah. Does
by having the
BCC have any
conversations.
partnerships with faith communities, groups, or volunteers that offer that kind of mentoring?
And so at this point, I'm not aware of, you know, of any outside or faith-based groups that are working, you know, with mentoring in any way. I think most of what we have involves more with, you know, students working with other students, but I think that that's definitely a need. Absolutely.
Okay. And then among the other issues that we
Yeah.
talked about, getting diverse groups, high
Yeah.
achievers and maybe not so high achievers, communicating together, or from different socioeconomic or racial or ethnic backgrounds.
Right.
Since you have such rich diversity at BCC, how do you take advantage of that and promote some cross?
Right. And so what we try to do is with, you know, the student groups and organizations that we have, and the students are amazing. I mean, they take such initiative to come up with different programs and groups and different ways to recognize students. I mean, the students are they take a considerable amount of initiative. But I think it still can be a challenge to make sure that there's even more opportunities to interact with people that, you know, maybe who aren't your neighbors or who are in some of your classes. And I think that we kind of can start that with starting with what are similar interests. I think that's the starting point, because you can have similar interests across groups with different backgrounds. We have so many international families as well, and so.
Do you think there'd be an opportunity to bringing service into the discussion,
Right.
to use a common purpose around a service
Yeah.
endeavor? To bring
Yes.
different groups together?
Yes,
or-
because the students are very service-minded and service-oriented. So I do think that that could be a fabulous opportunity. Here again, bringing people around around a common interest. And I think that's how we continue to bring people together. Yeah.
I know there's interest in our church about the issues of substance abuse.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned that internships or mentoring or service opportunities that show kids the impact
Yeah.
of substance abuse on lives could be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, and I continue to think, and I'll say it a lot, that students underestimate the impact of impairment. They underestimate the impact of impairment. And what's happening, at BCC and what I'm raising awareness of is about what's important for the safety of students. It kind of comes from my own background. I just want to, I'll tell you a little bit about that. So in the 2014-15 school year, I had to attend 2 funerals that year. One was at the beginning of the year, right around Labor Day weekend, for a student. I was principal of Rosa Parks Middle School. Rosa Parks Middle School feeds into Sherwood High School. There had been a party in the community around Labor Day weekend, and 3 students from Sherwood were in the car. One of those students a couple of the students, but I'd worked with quite a bit at Rosa Parks, so I'd gotten to know. And that particular student was ejected from the vehicle in an accident that was related to substance use, and because the vehicle hit a tree, and he later passed away. And seeing a student, a child, in a casket is just, I mean, it's one of these things you're never going to get out of your mind. It's one thing when you attend funerals and people have lived good, long lives, and they're in there in their suits, but seeing a child in his jeans and with this, in a casket is just an impression that I won't get out of my mind. And then later that year, when you're a principal for a long time, then they give you interns, just like student teachers. So you know that there comes to a point a student teacher will take over the building, take over the classroom, and then the teacher leaves. So I left as a principal intern, took over the building. That gave me an opportunity to be at Wooten High School for about 6 weeks, and I got to know a student, Calvin Lee. And same thing. I mean, I got to know him. He was wonderful. He was very charismatic, and he was headed to the University of Maryland, very excited he had gotten in, and very well traveled, and telling me the difference between him and his sister, and all of these things. And at the end of the year, a couple weeks after graduation, he was also killed in a car accident, I believe because he didn't have his seatbelt on. These are the experiences sort of I have as the foundation in my mind. And then when I came to BCC last year, and I'd already been told, I mean, when you come to a school, you're already told about, here are these different things. Some of the staff members that met with me to talk to me about some things that they had concern about, they wanted me to address. But we did have some real concerns, at some of our social events. And the things I saw there were just extraordinarily concerning about the safety. So in terms of what to do, I think it has to be a multi-pronged approach. It has to be, because there is no silver bullet, right? There's not one thing. No matter what, and this hasn't changed through the generations, there's always a sense that this will not happen to me. I am invincible, so all of these things will not happen. That was the sense when I was young. I mean, this is really, we're talking about other people's children, we're talking about other people. This is not me. So, having some kind of sense where, we help people understand, no, these students where this has happened, it's real, it does happen, and somehow understanding it, and whether it is from a scientific point of view, which we had recently, we invited one of the representatives from NIH. He was fabulous to talk to families. We had an event at Walter Johnson High School, and just go through scientifically, what you're seeing and what happens, whether it's from that point of view as well as talking to other children or talking to families affected. I think it would be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. We're going to turn to questions, but I want one comment from you on cybersecurity, because I thought what you were saying about technology and what a challenge that is for young people.
And so then this is the difference. This is the difference. in generations. So I never had to worry. If I was going to say something that really shouldn't have been said and I would have regretted, or done something that I would regret, I did not have that worry when I was 16, 17 years old, that now this is going to live on forever, that now this moment is going to be tweeted or Instagram or Vine or whatever people are using to get it out there at in just a second, in just a moment. And I've had situations already this year where little things have bubbled up, and I thought, but wasn't that last year? And oh, well, the video has resurfaced. Oh, okay, well, and this is a challenge that previous generations did not have to deal with. So the information is out there in a minute. Also, people are a lot bolder in what they say and do because they're with the cyber stuff, there can be sort of this anonymous feel or component to it. So things that people might not say to your face, if you will, they are willing to say, but now it is captured there. It is documented there, right beside their picture and their name. So this is a real problem, and there's another security problem that I just want to say, because I hadn't thought about this, it's actually related to substance use. So many students will say that, not many, but some students will have, they'll say they have fake IDs in order to obtain the alcohol. And one of the things that came up in the talk that we had with families a few weeks ago, students are handing all of their personal information to criminals. I hadn't thought about this. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it. But they're handing their personal information over to criminals. All of their information, and so now, in the future, it really opens them up to having a lot of problems with identity theft. So the cyber stuff is really scary, and it's hard to get a handle.
Right, and maybe during the question and answer period, we can probe some solutions on that more, but thank you for that great overview of challenges facing teens today, and let's turn to questions.
Yeah. Hi. Is this on? Okay. My son is a 10th grader at BCC, and he's getting a really good education. And I wanted to commend you on your strong stance against alcohol last year, and I felt the administration should have supported you better. And I see all the teachers and the staff at BCC giving 110%, but the school is over capacity. And what can we do to help you get more resources?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So we just, any opportunity you can to, because the staff it's very overwhelming. We're lucky enough, all schools this year got additional staffing allocations. So I will say that our class sizes this year generally are better than they were last year, because across the board, we definitely got more resources. But I think continuing to push at the importance of thinking about the enrollment at BCC, thinking about the enrollment at all of our area schools as we have growth, just making sure that there's planning for that growth at our, in our school facilities. So there's so many different people, and we have a long-range planning office, and I hate to say it because I just met this man, and I'm sorry that I'm forgetting his name, but because he just took the position just recently. But I would say that long-range planning office is somebody to say, continue to think about this, because usually, our projections for enrollment are fairly accurate when you think about, we have 2,068 students now. They projected us about 2030, so that's not bad. I think that's pretty good in terms of a projection, but we do usually have more students coming in than they anticipate, and usually they come into our 9th grade. So now I've really learned to sort of plan for that, and I always hold space in my 9th grade classes when I'm planning, because we've got to plan these things in terms of our hiring way back in March of the year before. So I usually plan for that, but I think that the long-range planning and always, when there are opportunities with the county council and things of that nature.
We have 2 county council members coming.
Oh, that's great.
Hans Riemer
I think it's just,
and Roger Berliner.
Okay,
are coming
Berliner.
to speak,
So Roger Berliner is the one we work with a lot. And so just making sure that it's definitely on the radar that we are
And we'll follow up
growing.
and get that email address.
Yeah.
So
No.
that you
Dr.
can-
Jones, can we dig in a little bit more into mentorship? That's
Yeah.
been a word that's been coming up a lot in our forums. One-on-one, what are the elements that you see that the students really could use? I mean, career advice or character or what? I mean, and is it one-on-one or is it group? Is it how?
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about, let's dig
Well,
into that a little
I,
bit.
I think that, I mean, you could work with a small group. I think that many of our students would, I mean, it could be either a very small group, I would say, or one-on-one. Some of the other things, and I didn't bring this up as a challenge, but it definitely is this level of stress and how you balance everything. So, here's the thing, many of our students are taking, I mean, by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're taking many advanced placement classes and many IB classes, International Baccalaureate classes. These are college classes, okay? So that's the kind of workload you're talking about. And they might be taking 4, 5, 6 classes like this, but they're not on a college schedule. So I loved college, right? And I loved taking the classes. But maybe I took, I was in class from 9 to noon on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and in class on, a certain period of time on Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're in class all day, taking these heavy loads that have a college level workload and all the other extracurricular activities. So I think that stress management and balance, and I think here again, that is also connected to the substance piece, because there has to be, we have a program, and this might be a way to plug in, we have a program called Sources of Strength. It kind of started and then it petered out a little bit, and we're trying to rejuvenate it. But the whole idea about the program is, what sources of strength can you look to when things aren't going the way you want them to, or when you are feeling stressed? So what do you have, and it could be a faith-based community, it could be, and how do we look at all of these different sources to add to the strength? So I think that that's a real thing. The stress piece is one, I think.
And you mentioned that actually affects attendance, because kids are not attending one class to do the work for the other, and they're making decisions in their own minds about what's more important.
How to prioritize.
And
so it's just that balance, and there's this press, a feeling of being pressed to compete, to compete, and so that just causes all of the stress. So I think that, really being able to, and a sense that if there's one little thing that happens, I got a B in this class or in this one little thing, that's going to tank everything, that all of a sudden this one little thing will just ruin it all. And that's not what college admissions advisors tell me. Every college admissions advisor I talk to, they tell me that they're looking at the whole picture. They want to see that students are engaged in rigorous courses, yes, but they want to see how, their question is, how will this student contribute to the learning community at this college? And it's not looking and picking out at this one thing. So.
Thank you.
And just a quick follow-up on that, too. We know that mentorship is not just one way, but it's two ways. And so we're very interested in exploring that as well, as what you see your kids in the millennials, what do they have to offer to the community that we might be able to facilitate?
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, the students they're very involved. Like I said, they're very service-oriented, and I think they're really involved in the community. They really they've loved, I've had a lot where they're working with children. I know that they do a lot in that, and I think that opportunities to work with people who are older, here again, it just provides opportunities for those connections and for them to understand. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Great.
In a previous generation, we used to talk about sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah.
That has perhaps changed now in terms of at least sex and sexuality. What advice do you give to parents dealing with these issues that come up for their children in school? Because this is perhaps, again, it's linked to maybe some of the cyber stuff that is happening, but it is much more common nowadays than it was. It's a different format. Thanks.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just like anything else. When these are difficult conversations, but I think it's just so important to have the conversations with your children and to engage and to do a lot of listening. I mean, that's really, really important too, to listen to their perspectives and listen to where they're coming from, but really to engage in the conversation. I think that where we sort of get ourselves into a little bit of a bind is when we're not having the conversations. I mean, I think that's the thing, because if you think, then all these sources of information that I talked about that can be problematic, somebody's Twitter feed or Instagram or whatever, that's what they're grabbing onto as what's real. So we have to be able to have and enter the conversations, even though there can be difficult conversations or can seem to be uncomfortable conversations. They have to be able to not only hear it from us, but also know that they can come to us. This is like me as a parent now. I mean, what I tell my own daughter, I engage with her with difficult conversations, and I always say to her just very plainly, if you have a question about anything, who do you come to? And she says, you can come to Mom. I said, if you make a mistake, who do you come to? Oh, well, I can come to Mom. And I said, and who makes mistakes? And she said, everybody. And does she hide stuff? Mm-hmm. She sure does.
But you did mention one other important point, which is kids need to be taught how to process information in this environment, because they tend to believe everything that's tweeted is correct.
Right.
And that's another thing that mentorship could perhaps address.
But I just wanted to make this one last point. She does. So my own daughter, she will hide stuff, and then we just have to go through that process again. So it's an iterative process. It's not a one-shot with students. So they are going to do some things, and then you go back again. Well, remember, you can call on me if you make a mistake. Remember, let's go through these conversations again. And it gets back to that piece of persistence. You have to go back. And I give the example of my mom with seatbelts. This is way, way, way back when I was growing up. And at first, it was not the law. I mean, when I was young, it was not the law at all that you had to wear a seatbelt. And I remember getting in the car, and my mother must have said it, 100 is a low estimate. I mean, she must have said it 100 plus times. Put your seatbelt on, put your seatbelt on, put your seatbelt on. How frustrating it must have been for her to have to say it every single time. But now, it's automatic for me. And so yes, she must have had to say it 100 times. But it does get through, but it takes that persistence because it is an iterative process with kids.
Dr. Jones, hello. A couple of programs that you have at BCC that I think are so wonderful, and I hope maybe you can just elaborate on a little bit, but speak specifically to mentorship. One that's near and dear to my heart is Career Partnership Day, and that's a collaborative effort between BCC and the Chamber and Junior Achievement, and it's an incredible opportunity for the juniors and seniors at BCC to get out and spend a day with a business person and shadow them and learn really about what they're doing, and it's something that as somebody who's on the recruiting job side, my responsibility is to help recruit businesses. We are constantly looking for folks to take on a student for a day. So that's one great opportunity, and you can talk about Stacy's good work there in her internship program. But then the other part, and maybe Rick should talk about this, but BCC was the creator of College Tracks. And talk about an incredible mentorship opportunity there. It started, I think, as a couple of moms who saw a need, and now it's really a nationally recognized nonprofit. I think you've got it in 3 different schools. Rick is tutoring 4 kids, I think, this year, but they're really looking for mentors and tutors there. So I think BCC should be recognized for these incredible programs, and certainly.
So there's already some structures we can plug into, is what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely, with college and and with careers, absolutely.
Dr. Jones, what do kids do after school? What have you observed? What have you noticed? Do kids just go home? Do they do activities? Do any just have nothing to do? And if they have nothing to do, what are they doing?
Right. All right, so there is this large variety, right? So we've got students who are involved in sports activities or clubs after school. Mostly the sports do after school. Some of our students are working after school, so they're involved in their work. And yes, I do have some students after school who they like to be at the school. And that's what I was thinking about with this mentoring. They like to be at school. They don't like to leave. And they want to be together, sort of socializing while they're doing their work. They may need access to some of our computers, printers, what have you. But that presents an opportunity because they like to stay. I mean, school's over at 2:30. They probably like to stay till 5:30 p.m. because they like to be there. And there's an opportunity there in working with them. Yeah.
I think we have time for one more. John, do we? Yes.
Hi, my name's Dylan Grenham, and I was a former teacher at BCC back in the Katie Harvey and Sean Bolson days. And I know that there's a couple of programs. Do you still have the MYP program going?
Yes.
So I was when I went to central office, I was one of my former students asked me to mentor for the MYP program.
What
and
is NYP?
It stands for Middle Years Program, and it's a program that tries to connect these academic themes to the world at large, and the kids have to do a project, and they have to ask a mentor to help them. So one possibility was, with all the talent in this room and at this church, to have people list their names and careers, and then students who have an interest, similar interest, and want to do their project could pick a name off of a list of a community member. I met with two young women for once a month for the whole year, and we worked through their project, and the kids come up with the project based on interest.
That still exists and is still...
Yeah, so actually right now our sophomores are working on their final project. So this is a great opportunity. Each student has been assigned to a staff member, and the project is based on what they're passionate about and how they want to engage in research about a topic that they're really passionate about. And so yes, it's their personal project. So that would be great. I mean, to have some outside, because one of the things that the students struggle with a little bit was the global understanding, like the global impact, because the whole point of that project, as you were saying, is to help them make connections.
Bigger connections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so being able to do that is important.
I'll sign up. Well, I think we have to end, but thank you so much for an incredibly rich presentation, Dr. Donna Jones. And I hope this is just the beginning of a continuing relationship with BCC.
Thank you.